Have you ever wondered what the firearms world would look like if the AR-15 had never been invented? No uppers, no lowers, no buffer tubes, no endless debates about direct impingement versus piston systems. No guy at the range holding a rifle with $2,000 in accessories claiming, "This is my budget build." Would another rifle take its place? Would the AK become even bigger in American gun culture? Would the Mini 14 become the king of civilian semi-autos? Would the FN FAL become the rifle everyone argues about online? Or would the entire firearms industry look completely different? Because the AR-15 isn't just a rifle. It's a platform, an ecosystem, a political symbol, a competition tool, a home defense option, a varmint rifle, and basically adult Lego for people who own torquey wrenches. It changed how rifles were built, sold, customized, and debated across military doctrine, civilian culture, law enforcement, pop culture, and politics. So what happens next? To answer that, we need to go back to the Cold War. In our timeline, the AR-15 arrived when military rifle design was stuck between two worlds. On one side was the old battle rifle philosophy: full power cartridges, long barrels, wood and steel, and enough recoil to remind you that freedom comes with shoulder pain. Rifles like the M14, FNFL, and HKG-3 fired 7.62 NATO, hit hard, and carried the full Cold War personality of designed by people who expected World War III. On the other side, military thinkers realized most infantry engagements didn't happen at extreme long range. Soldiers needed lighter rifles, lighter ammo, better controllability, and the ability to carry more rounds. That's where the AR-15 was different. It used aluminum and polymer instead of wood and steel. It fired a small caliber, high-velocity cartridge. Its straight-line stock design reduced muzzle climb. It was lighter, handier, and easier to shoot quickly. Sure, the early M16 had serious problems: bad powder, no chrome lining, poor maintenance guidance, and the infamous self-cleaning myth. Basically, a procurement disaster starter pack. But once fixed, the rifle matured into one of the most influential systems ever created. Not because it was perfect, but because it was adaptable. Now let's split the timeline. In this universe, Eugene Stoner's design never reaches production. It stays an interesting prototype. Armalite focuses elsewhere, or the AR-10's struggles scare investors away. Gun nerds in this universe see an old black and white photo of it and say, that looked ahead of its time, before going right back to arguing about FAL parts kits. No AR-15 means no M16, no M4, and no exploding civilian market. That single change creates a massive domino effect. So what does the US military carry instead? Without the AR-15, the US military likely keeps the M14 in service longer. The M14 is a beautiful rifle. Wood, steel, 7.62 NATO. Pure Cold War energy. It looks like something your grandfather would call a real rifle, while judging your polymer furniture from across the room. But as a general infantry weapon in Vietnam, it had severe issues. It was heavy, the ammo was heavy, and full auto fire was less controlled automatic fire and more angry canoe paddle powered by thunder. In jungle warfare, weight and controllability mattered. Even without the AR-15, that pressure doesn't disappear. Vietnam still happens. Close-range jungle fights still happen. Troops still need something lighter. Without the AR-15 ready to step in, the transition becomes slower, messier, and much more experimental. One possibility is that the M14 gets dragged further into the future. Synthetic stocks appear earlier, shorter barrels get tested, better optics mounts are prioritized, and designated marksman variants get more attention. The M14 evolves earlier into something like the M21, M25, or EBR-style rifles. Standard infantry rifle? M14. Marksman rifle? M14. Jungle rifle? Short M14? Paratrooper rifle? Also M14, but now everyone complains louder. The problem is you can modernize the furniture and add rails, but you cannot engineer away weight, recoil, and heavy ammo. The M14 lasts longer and becomes iconic, but it doesn't solve the core problem. The door remains open for other rifles. If the AR-15 never exists, the FNFL becomes even more influential. It was already used by dozens of countries as the right arm of the free world. In this timeline, American planners look more seriously at FAL pattern rifles, domestic production increases, and civilian shooters embrace it as the premium semi-auto of the era. Instead of a black rifle with a flat top upper, the universal symbol of Western firepower becomes a FAL with rock and lock magazines and enough Cold War charisma to make a surplus collector cry. However, the FAL shares the M14's core limitation. It's still a 7.62 NATO battle rifle, powerful and iconic, but far from lightweight or soft shooting by modern carbine standards. The HK-G3 timeline. Another possible winner is the HK-G3. Without the AR-15, roller-delayed rifles gain massive influence in the American market. The G3 is rugged, powerful, and mechanically fascinating. It has that German engineering personality where everything works, but the ergonomics feel designed during a meeting where nobody asked, "What if humans have thumbs?" The charging handle is way out front, the safety is awkward, and the trigger isn't match-grade poetry. But it works, hits hard, and looks intimidating in stamped steel. G3 clones become common in the US. Domestic manufacturers build them, and more shooters learn to love the HK slap. Range days sound less like pinging steel with ARs, and more like slap, boom, brass launched into low orbit. Still, heavy recoil and limited modularity keep it from being a perfect replacement. The single biggest civilian winner would be the Ruger Mini 14. Without the AR-15 dominating gun stores, the Mini 14 becomes the default American semi-auto .223 rifle. It's handy, reliable, and has serious ranch rifle energy. It looks less like a military weapon and more like something meant to check fence lines and control coyotes. 1980s and 90s gun magazines are packed with Mini 14 content. Accuracy tips, stock upgrades, trigger jobs, and tactical conversions, plus at least one guy insisting his shoots half MOA if he does his part, the official legal disclaimer of all rifle accuracy claims. Yet the Mini 14 lacks the AR's modularity. You aren't swapping uppers at the kitchen table or casually changing barrels. It becomes the people's semi-auto, but fails to create a true DIY build culture. The platform that unquestionably gains ground is the AK. Without the AR-15, American shooters wanting a practical semi-auto lean heavily into imported and domestic AKs. An AR feels like a system. An AK feels like a machine built to survive being thrown out of a truck and then insult you for worrying about scratches. It is simple, durable, and reliable. Despite trade-offs, slower safeties, trickier optics mounting, and rock and lock mags, the American AK market matures much faster. We get better domestic builds, modernized rails, improved optic mounts, and serious training culture around the platform. Still, it lacks one vital thing the AR brought to the table: standardization. This is the biggest difference in the alternate timeline. The AR-15 was an ecosystem that standardized the civilian market around one common platform. Uppers, lowers, bolt carriers, triggers, handguards, gas blocks, barrels, muzzle devices, an entire industry formed around interchangeable parts. Companies could specialize in just one component, creating a shared language. Without the AR-15, the market fragments. Shooters split between Mini 14s, AKs, FALs, G3 clones, and modernized M14s. That means fewer shared parts, fewer cheap upgrades, less compatibility, and more proprietary nonsense. It's good news for gunsmiths, but bad news for impatient people with a vice block and too much confidence. Customization exists, but it's expensive, limited, and platform-specific. In our timeline, the AR-15 dominated three-gun and practical shooting because it was light, accurate, ergonomic, and endlessly tunable. Without it, competition lines look wild. You get Mini 14 race guns, highly refined AK builds, heavy division FLs, and modernized M14 shooters spending half the match managing recoil. Competitors would force innovation, better triggers, mounts, and comps. But visually, instead of endless ARs with LPVOs and offset dots, you get a chaotic, diverse mix of platform, which honestly sounds kind of awesome. Law enforcement would be heavily affected. AR carbines became standard patrol rifles because they were accurate, controllable, and easy to mount lights and optics on. Without it, agencies rely longer on shotguns, pistol-caliber carbines, Mini-14s, or surplus military rifles. One department runs Mini-14s, another uses G3s, another stays with shotguns. This lack of standardization slows down training norms and delays the modern patrol carbine setup we know today. Movies, video games, and news broadcasts lose their most iconic visual symbol. Does the AK become even more dominant on screen? Does the FAL become the heroic Western rifle? Do bullpups like the AOG take over 1990s action movies? Imagine video games without the classic M4 loadout or AR customization menu. Players end up customizing Mini-14s, AKs, G3s, or fictional piston-driven rifles instead. The visual language of modern firearms completely shifts. The public debate surrounding firearms wouldn't disappear. It just finds a new target. Without the AR-15, another semi-automatic rifle takes center stage in legislation, media coverage, and controversy. Maybe the AK, maybe the Mini-14. The AR-15 didn't create the debate over firearms. It became the most visible object inside it. In another timeline, a different rifle gets that role. Different silhouette, same headlines, same comment sections on fire. Removing the AR-15 wouldn't make the market quieter. It would make it more chaotic. The demand for lightweight, accurate, customizable semi-autos doesn't vanish. Militaries still want lighter firepower, police want patrol carbines, and civilians want practical sporting rifles. Without a dominant standard, 5 or 6 smaller ecosystems fight for control. Eventually, someone builds a new modular platform to answer that demand. Maybe a piston system, maybe a bullpup, designed from day one around optics, rails, and suppressors. It arrives 20 years later and becomes even more controversial because the market was waiting for a standard. If the AR-15 had never been invented, the firearms world wouldn't stay empty. It would build another one. Different name, different operating system, different magazines, same demand, same debates. Same guy at the gun counter saying, "I swear this is my last rifle." And just like in our timeline, he is absolutely lying. So what do you think would have happened? Which rifle takes its place? Drop your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to subscribe for more firearm history and what-if scenarios.